I rise to offer this amendment to direct the Corps of Engineers to focus on the tasks that it can do and should do when it comes to Section 408 reviews. The Rivers and Harbors Act of 1899, enacted in the final days of the 55th Congress, first established the process that we know today as a Section 408 review, which I have here in my hand. The provision was intended to protect engineered structures built by the Corps that serve particular functions, such as seawalls, dikes, levees, and piers, by requiring the Corps of Engineers to authorize any requests for substantial work on these or similar assets. Over time, however, the Corps has expanded its regulatory authority far beyond the scope of that statute. Specifically, the Corps now requires a review of any proposal for a physical modification or structure that touches a Corps project, even if it has no bearing at all on the navigation or flood control. This has resulted in an overlay of additional administrative procedures, delays, and unnecessary costs. In my district at the Port of Houston, the Corps of Engineers is currently requiring users to go through the Section 408 process in addition to regulatory and real estate protocols for access to dredge material placement sites. In plain English, this means that for a small business to fill up a dump truck full of muck excavated from the bottom of a ship channel and carry it off somewhere else, they have to fully comply with the same Section 408 review that would affect the 10-mile-long Galveston seawall. These projects, which have no direct impact on the Corps structures, are undertaken by private users, including many small businesses from the area who are investing in their facilities, expanding commerce and exports, and providing jobs and economic benefits to the state and our nation. The additional time and costs as a result of unnecessary 408 process, borne entirely by private entities or non-federal partners, delays and increases the cost of these critical projects. My amendment reinforces the original intent of the Rivers and Harbors Act by focusing the Corps on actual navigation and flood control assets, allowing them to devote their full attention and resources to important safety excavations and expedited review and execution of project modification requests. Mr. Speaker, since 1775, the Army Corps of Engineers has performed critical work ensuring the safety and reliability of America's ports and harbors, and my amendment supports their mission and the good work they do by focusing their resources and the attention where it belongs, and I urge a yes vote and reserve the ballot. And one of the great honors I have here in Congress is to represent four great ports: Orange, Beaumont, Cedar Bayou, and the biggest port in Texas and one of the largest in the world, the Port of Houston. When America's astronauts serving in space look out of their window down in Houston, it's probably hard for them to make out their home, away from home, at Johnson Space Center. But what they can't miss is the scale and strategic importance of the Port of Houston, which is right down the road from Johnson Space Center. The greater Houston area is the energy production and chemical manufacturing capital of the world, and the Port of Houston's ability to ship those goods is directly responsible for billions of dollars in economic activity and hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs in our state and across the country. But like the city of Houston itself, not all of the port's important channels, tributaries, and other navigation assets that fall under the purview of the Corps of Engineers are within the footprint of what was originally authorized by Congress. Instead, many of these channels have been assumed for maintenance by the Corps of Engineers over the years. Each one has met the requirements of being environmentally acceptable, economically justified, and constructed in permits and appropriate engineering and design standards. This in itself is not a bad thing. In many cases, the construction or modification of the channels by non-federal users has reduced the overall federal cost and provided for national economic benefits well before a federal project could be accomplished. The downside is that channels which have been assumed for maintenance are not considered authorized projects. Therefore, while those channels are just as important as a federally constructed project, a channel which has been assumed for maintenance is treated quite differently from an authorized project right next to it, which can disrupt the upkeep and operations of both. At this point, I want to read from a letter sent to my office by the Port of Houston that describes how this issue came to their attention and why passage of this amendment is so essential not only for our region, but for every port in this country. The Corps has long, this is the wording. The Corps has long identified a navigation safety problem at the intersection of the Houston Ship Channel, HSC, and Bayport Channel, also known as the Bayport Flare, caused by its design and construction of the Houston Ship Channel, and promised to properly correct the safety deficiency. However, the Corps discovered that while it could construct the part of the corrective work which lay within the boundaries of the Houston Ship Channel, it could not construct the second part of the solution within the Bayport Ship Channel because the Bayport Channel was not considered authorized by Congress, but only assumed for maintenance after construction. The Corps agreed that the Bayport assumption of maintenance was conducted in accordance with laws providing authority to the Secretary of the Army to accept qualifying work, and that the Port of Houston Authority met all design, environmental, and economic requirements of a channel as if it were designed and constructed by the Corps. The Bayport flare deficiency exposed a serious shortcoming whereby the federal government was unable to make a necessary safety correction resulting from a deficient federal design because it could only fix what it had physically constructed and not within channels that it had managed and operated for decades. I also ask unanimous consent to enter the full content of this letter into the record.
The request will be covered under general leave.
Thank you. My amendment provides a solution by putting channels which have been assumed for maintenance on equal footing with those that have been authorized, eliminating the distinction without a difference that currently exists to streamline the process and prevent these unnecessary bureaucratic hang-ups from delaying critical safety and navigation work where it is needed most. And I urge a yes vote on my amendment and reserve the balance of my time.